Hi, welcome to the Bicycle Friendly Driver in-Service Training Program. I'm Christine Anthony Miller, a commander with the Houston Police Department and board member on the Mayor's Bicycle Advisory Committee. As a cyclist myself, it's imperative I ride responsibly, and as a driver, it's imperative I not only recognize the legal rights of cyclists, but that I too am a bicycle-friendly driver. It is our hope that after watching this educational program, that each of you will become a more bicycle-friendly driver. I'd like to thank BikeHouston for their collaboration with this project and working to educate all Houstonians on the importance of bike safety, driver safety, and how we can all work together to safely share the road. On August 13th, 2019, joined by mobility partners, disability advocates, law enforcement representatives, and first responders, Mayor Sylvester Turner signed an executive order to adopt Vision Zero Houston, a plan to end traffic deaths and serious injuries caused by crashes on Houston roads by the year 2030. Vision Zero means no more traffic deaths, period, for all modes of mobility. Zero vehicular crashes involving pedestrians, persons utilizing wheelchairs, cyclists, motorcyclists, skateboarders, scooter riders, and drivers of all types of vehicles. No more deaths, period. Vision Zero Houston prioritizes safety and accessibility in street design for people of all ages and abilities. It requires collaboration and leadership to improve mobility through engineering, enforcement, education, evaluation, and equity. Vision Zero Houston is a comprehensive and holistic approach to safer streets that supports the common good and enhances the quality of life for all Houstonians. Such projects could include protected bike lanes, widened sidewalks, shared use pathways, improved lighting, safe crossings, or wider curbs to allow for more room for pedestrians and cyclists. We can prevent people from dying on our roadways. No loss of life is acceptable. Our streets, our lives, our commitment. The Bicycle Friendly Driver Program has usually been taught through various community groups, civic associations, churches, and through HPD's Positive Interaction Program, or PIP meetings. It's important that City of Houston departments and employees support the Mayor's executive order, and by offering this online in-service course through the TMS system, the Bicycle Friendly Driver Program can reach so many more people. Thank you in advance for your attention. It's our hope that you'll enjoy this presentation, learn something new, be more thoughtful when driving, and commit to being a more bicycle-friendly driver. As required, I'll read the objectives verbatim. The Bicycle Friendly Driver Program's objectives are to demonstrate new road designs, demonstrate how to avoid common crashes and what motorcyclists and cyclists can do differently, discuss some common crashes, and discuss traffic scenarios. BikeHouston is a nonprofit bicycle advocacy organization whose mission is to not only create safe bikeways, but to do so through educating community members, partnering with law enforcement in data sharing, and training programs such as this one. Sharing the road is a responsibility of all road users. The majority of us likely rely on vehicles as our primary modes of transportation, but there's so many others. Walking, riding a bike, riding metro, using a wheelchair, riding a scooter or a Segway, riding a motorcycle, and yes, even rollerblading. I hear it's making a comeback. No matter how you get from place to place, the city's infrastructure like streets, pathways, sidewalks, bus stops, intersection, bike paths, lighting, and crossing signals all must be designed to ensure the safest transportation for everyone. Again, no loss of life is acceptable. These are the topics that will be covered during this training. We'll talk about sharing the road and show current bike infrastructure. We'll talk about common crashes, how cyclists take the lane, and what maneuvers are legal or not. We'll talk about what cyclists are taught, because it's not just drivers' responsibility to be friendly. BikeHouston, along with other bicycle advocacy groups like the League of American Cyclists, also offer education programs for bicyclists to ensure safe and responsible cycling. As always, there will be a comprehension true-false question at the end of each module. Ever since they were invented, bicycles have been popular forms of recreational transportation. In some countries, they even outnumber cars and are the #1 form of mobility. Bikes can be road bikes, mountain bikes, hybrid, tri-bikes, cruisers, recumbent, tandem, unicycles, tricycles, BMX style, have 1 speed or have 21 speeds, or can even be electric. Some use bikes for competitive sports or just casual recreation. For some people, either by choice or necessity, bikes are their only or primary form of transportation. Some use bikes in their work, including the Houston Police Department and the Houston Fire Department, who have active bike patrol and bike medic units. And to acknowledge what some of you may have noticed in these photos, as responsible cyclists, it's important to wear a helmet when actually riding. Adults may not be legally required to do so, but it's important for safety reasons, and they have saved lives and help prevent traumatic brain injuries. Houston requires the use of a helmet for any child under 18 years of age who rides on a bicycle or any sidecar, trailer, child carrier, seat, or other device attached to a bicycle. We are all people. Everyone deserves the right to safely use our streets and reach our destinations. You may have seen these white bicycles around town. Like the crosses erected at a DWI fatality crash site, these white bikes are meant to bring about awareness of a tragic death of a cyclist. Ghost bikes are small and somber memorials for bicyclists who were killed or hit on the street. A bicycle is painted all white and locked to a street sign near the crash site, accompanied by a small plaque. They serve as reminders of the tragedy that took place on an otherwise anonymous street corner and as quiet statements in support of cyclists' right to safe travel. Bicycles are considered vehicles and should be utilized as such. People on bikes should obey and follow the rules of the road. Cyclists should seek to be predictable, visible, and not distracted when operating a bicycle. As a motor vehicle driver, you should avoid distractions and be mindful of those utilizing other ways of transit, such as walking or bike riding. Cycle tracks offer high comfort protection and separate traffic flow between motor vehicles and bicyclists. Bike boxes are advanced stop lines or spaces that allow cyclists to get in front of stopped cars and get a head start at traffic signals or position for turns. Sharrow symbols are pavement markings that indicate both bicycles and drivers need to position themselves for safe distancing while driving and riding on a street. They are an alert to motor vehicle drivers to the presence of cyclists, an alert to cyclists to position themselves within the travel lane, or can provide wayfinding around bike routes. Sharrow encourages safe passing by motorists, require no additional street space, reduces incidents of cyclists riding on sidewalks, and wrong-way riding. And lastly, there are bike signals indicating when it is safe for the bicyclist to proceed. Look for signage that alerts you to look out for people on bikes. There are many different types of protected bike lanes. Some are more high comfort than others. High comfort lanes indicate that appropriate signage and barriers exist and separate motor vehicles and cyclists. Delineators are barriers that impede motor vehicle traffic within bike lanes and can include candlesticks, armadillos, concrete barriers, or buffer paint markings. Here are a few protected bike lanes we have in Houston. Elysian Street is an example of a high comfort protected bike lane with concrete barrier delineators. Hardy Street uses candlesticks, and Kelly Street uses armadillos. It's important for bike lanes to be well marked, as the directional paint makes it clear to both drivers and cyclists where bikes have the right to travel. Additionally, cyclists should follow these directions as they have been established for their safety. As you can see in the top left photo, Cyclists have a protected lane to turn left in the middle of the roadway, kind of like a median. Drivers who are also turning left need to ensure they watch for cyclists and do not cross into this lane when they are turning left themselves, as it is reserved for bikes only. Most protected bike lanes are painted green, such as the bottom left photo. This photo also shows a contraflow bike lane. Contraflow bike lanes are designed to allow bicyclists to ride in the opposite direction of motor vehicle traffic, and these protected bike lanes are usually separated by some type of delineator. Shared use pathways users include those walking, running, or riding bicycles. Motorcycles and mopeds are prohibited on these paths. These pathways are wider than regular sidewalks and are built for the purpose of greater mobility for more users. Although riding bikes is allowed on sidewalks in most areas, sidewalks are not the safest place to ride. And it's just common courtesy to somehow signal when passing slow-moving cyclists or pedestrians. You should pass on their left, either saying, "on your left," or some cyclists like to use a signal such as a bell or a chime. Once you have passed the other person, please make sure to proceed a safe distance before moving back over to the right. This diagram shows crash data from the top 10 counties in Texas based upon the number of fatalities. In general, bicycling is safe. A small percentage of crashes that take place in our community involve a person on a bike. However, cyclists are more vulnerable road users, as is illustrated by the fact that 23% of serious crashes involve a person on a bike. Texas ranks third highest in pedal cyclist fatalities. Because of our size, it should also come as no surprise that Harris County leads Texas in the number of bike fatalities. No loss of life is acceptable. Intersections and driveways are where all people need to pay the most attention, as those areas account for the majority of bicycle crashes. However, 70% of fatalities occurred at non-intersections. Over half the crashes occur in the dark, 20% are caused by distractions or an increased blood alcohol content, and more than 10% are due to roadways not being in good repair. Wrong way riding, failure to yield right-of-way exiting a private drive, crossing a street at an area other than an intersection, failure to yield right-of-way turning left, and failure to have proper safety lights contribute to a large percentage of crashes in our cycling community. Fatality crashes are tragic events, and this training course and any other such educational safety program is not meant to blame any victim, especially if their actions contributed to the crash, but rather it should be a wake-up call to all drivers and all cyclists that we all have a right to use the road. It's imperative we do so safely, cooperatively, and responsibly. No loss of life is acceptable. The takeaway point from the data and the reason for educating both cyclists and motorists is that most of the time, both road users, that is the drivers and the cyclist, can do something to prevent a crash. It is less important about who ultimately gets a ticket or who is at fault, and more important that we all watch out for each other and ourselves. The rest of the presentation will show you how to do just that. During this presentation, you will be shown cyclists in various scenarios, and you'll be asked whether it's legal or not. Here's the first scenario. This cyclist is traveling against the flow of traffic in a non-designated bike lane. What do you think? Legal or not? If you answered not, then you're right. This is dangerous because cyclists should travel in the same direction as traffic flow unless in a protected bike lane, such as a contraflow bike lane shown earlier in the presentation. This indicates the potential for a crash because the cyclist is traveling against the flow of traffic. The motorist is not anticipating a moving vehicle in this position. Bicycles should travel with the flow of traffic in the farthest part of the lane that is practicable, for example, if it's safe or free of debris. Motorists should always come to a full stop, look left, left, and maybe even right again before proceeding to turn. In this scenarios, both parties could do something to avoid a crash. Let's look at this scenario. The blue arrow indicates a bicyclist traveling eastbound in the westbound traffic lane. The yellow arrow is a vehicle traveling south in a commercial parking lot and turning right into the westbound lane. The vehicle struck the cyclist, ejecting them off of their bike and slamming them into their windshield. The cyclist shattered the windshield of the striking vehicle. What could both parties have done differently to avoid this crash? The bicyclist should have been riding with the flow of traffic in the eastbound lane. The motorist should have been more attentive leaving the parking lot, looked both ways to ensure that there was no traffic either way, including other road users going against traffic. In this scenario, a bicyclist was traveling westbound in the westbound traffic lane, as was the motor vehicle behind them. The motor vehicle driver tried to pass the cyclist on a bridge by going into the eastbound lanes, but due to oncoming traffic, the motor vehicle had to move back into the westbound lane and collided with the cyclist. What could have been done differently? For their safety, the cyclist could have taken the lane. Even if they had, the end result may have been the same as the motorist passed another vehicle, in this case the bike, on a bridge, which caused an obviously dangerous and fatal situation when the truck had to move back into the lane. Large vehicles in particular need to give more room to cyclists and be aware that their size and speed can also cause wind gusts, which can negatively impact bicyclists. The motorist could have been more patient, waited for a safe and, in this case, legal place to pass. A motorist should treat a cyclist as a slow-moving vehicle. Wait to see if it's clear to pass for oncoming traffic and ensure that you have enough time to safely pass. Use your indicators. Once you can see the cyclist in your rearview mirror, you can travel back into the lane. Share the road. No loss of life is acceptable. What do you think about this one? 3 cyclists, 2 of which are riding side by side, taking up the lane of traffic. Legal or not? If you answered legal, then you're right. 2 cyclists can ride side by side on residential streets and take the lane. This also offers higher visibility to motorists. Situations always vary, and even though it's legal, cyclists do need to be cognizant of vehicular traffic and the impact to mobility. Why do bicyclists take the lane? The most important thing to remember is that bicycles are considered vehicles, and therefore they have a legal right to take the lane. Responsible cyclists care about mobility and drivers, so a full taking of the lane is usually done when absolutely necessary for safety reasons. We take the lane for our safety when there's debris or construction, to prevent drivers from buzzing past us too closely, to be more visible, and when needed to turn left. Once we turn left, we should continue to ride safely in a bike lane if applicable, or nearest to the right curb as practicable. Please be patient with cyclists. We all have a right to the road, and we all need to get to our destinations safely. How about this scenario? Legal or not? If you answered legal, then you're right. These cyclists are within the legality of riding to the farthest right practicable. This is not a bike lane, but an emergency shoulder. The cyclist on the right should not travel more right because of the gravel on the shoulder. The cyclist on the left could have slowed and ridden single file, but they do have a right to be side by side. They are likely socializing and motivating each other through their training ride. And it also looks like they're on a more rural highway that is less likely traveled, and there is ample room for motorists to pass them safely on the left. Again, it's all about sharing the road.